While making his rounds through the woods, Golem, an ancient wandering forest protector, comes across a young human girl named Somali bound in chains. He takes her into his care and accepts the title of her father. The two travel from city to city, learning about their civilization's history. They learn that a war between monsters and humanity nearly wiped out the human race, and that while some of the survivors escaped to live in seclusion, many others ended up as slaves or food. Somali wanders away from Golem while shopping in a town and chases a cat, eventually being cornered in an alley. The cat, who later reveals himself to be a monster, almost recognizes Somali as a human based on her scent, but is repelled by Golem. Golem chastises Somali for wandering off as the two depart for their next destination, but Golem realizes that small children act out of pure curiosity. He extends his hand to her, ensuring that she stays close to him. Somali trips and falls while chasing some horned rabbits while eating breakfast beside a flowing creek, injuring her knee in the process. Shizuno, a dwarf Oni, appears out of nowhere and offers to help bandage Somali's injury before transporting the two to his home. They meet Yabashira, an Oni who works as Shizuno's assistant. After feeding Somali, Golem requests that Shizuno teach him the ways of medical herbology, which Shizuno agrees to do in exchange for a small piece of Golem's armor to study for medical research purposes. While Shizuno teaches Golem various medical combinations, Somali has Yabashira assign her chores in exchange for Golem sacrificing a piece of himself for her. When Shizuno starts to regret asking for a Golem shard, he assures the dwarf Oni that his agony is similar to Somali's when she injures herself, which he never wants to see again. That night, while Somali is sleeping, Golem tells the Honest that he is traveling with Somali to find her parents, but that he only has a year before he shuts down permanently. The next morning, the two say their goodbyes to their Oni hosts and return to the forest. Somali and Golem arrive in Anthole City, a desert canyon village. They don't make enough money selling their remaining goods, so Golem takes a job waiting tables to supplement their income. The diner, run by a family of deer-like shurigaras, is nearly empty, so Golem covers for the injured mother while Somali befriends their young daughter Kikilla. During his shift, Golem hears of humans living on the other side of the desert, but cannot afford the necessary gear. Because of his busy schedule, Golem spends less time with Somali, making her lonely. Golem reluctantly lets Somali run an errand with Kikilla across town. During their conversation, Somali expresses her fear that Golem will abandon her once their journey is over. To allay her fears, Kikilla takes Somali to a sacred cave beneath town. They explore the mysterious cavern and find the field of glowing flowers, but they also awaken a mushroom-like monster. A scruffy wolf-like creature chases the monster away as it prepares to attack Somali. Muthrika, the wolf man, reveals himself as the underground chamber's guardian and Kikilla's teacher. They see Somali's flower lose its glow and die due to a lack of nutrients from the mystical Tsukiyami trees. After persuading Muthrika, the trio explores the grotto to find Somali's wish-granting flower. They reach the cavern's core and find a giant Tsukiyami tree surrounded by flowers. A huge lizard monster interrupts Somali's choice and blesses her wish in spirit. Golem chastises Somali for deviating from the errands, prompting her to flee to her room. After explaining their ordeal, Muthrika urges Golem to hear Somali's side of the story, but Somali falls ill and refuses to eat. Golem rushes out to buy medicine, realizing he may be partly to blame for Somali's trauma. While Salami rests, Kakalila, Kikilla's father, tells Golem that parenting is a learning process. But Golem has to keep working because he spent his earnings on Somali's medicine the night before. Golem is approached by Muthrika as he opens the diner, who informs him that his promise to stay with Somali will not be kept. After a few days in the desert, Somali and Golem arrive in Winecup village. There they meet Yuzoi, a harpy, and Hadora, an ailing falcohol. The feathered duo offer to travel with Golem and Somali, who gladly accept. Unbeknownst to them, Yuzoi discovers Somali is human, and Hadora is also a disguised human morphing into a harpy. Yuzoi plans to use Somali to help Hadora. The group sets out on their journey through the desert, encountering sandstorms and desert beasts along the way. To stop Yuzoi from capturing Somali and claiming her blood will save Hadora, Hadora reveals to Golem that he is human. Hadora tells Golem that a strange soothsayer told him and Yuzoi that finding new, clean blood would cure his tainted blood, so Yuzoi intends to take Somali's. Somali escapes Yuzoi's grasp, but falls into an underground pond, forcing Yuzoi to save her. apologize, and explain her actions. Somali forgives Yuzoi for saving her from drowning and Golem arrives. Hedora tells Golem that he had a family in a small farm town that was attacked by monsters during the war. Out of food, he killed Yuzoi's mother and brought her to his family's hideout to eat. This violently turned his family into harpies and killed them, but spared him and left him deformed. A young Yuzoi later approached him and became attached. Yuzio is shown to be awake and has heard Hedora's story. The next day, Yuzoi and Somali are swept away by a massive sand twister. They are soon found, but are pursued by a monster. Hedora leads it away, intending to die for Yuzoi's sake, but is saved by her. She then forgives him and tells him to live for her. Golem feels guilty about breaking his promise to stay with Somali after seeing Hedora promise to stay with Yuzoi. He tells Hedora about his impending death and a village west of the desert where he can find information. Upon reaching the end of the desert, Hedora and Yuzoi depart, while Golem and Somali head for the rumored village. They arrive in a magical village run by friendly witches after a long journey. With the help of sister witches Hazel and Praline, they find a book about humans called the Chronicles of Hereso. But Somali is suddenly attacked by book-eating monsters called pescafish. After defeating them, a huge pescafish attacks the Chronicles. She tries to flee with it, but the monster destroys it, turning its attention to Somali. The Golem stops the beast, but loses much of his armor. Somali sobs over Golem's injury and the loss of the book, but he assures her that her safety comes first. The witches check to see if anyone had read the Chronicles before, and only Isolde Nebsol, the library's head librarian, had. Praline decides to give Golem a map of the library to help them find their way after considering the head librarian's failing health. They are, however, caught by security monsters and labeled as intruders. Somali is snatched by Golem, and the two make their way to the heart of the library, where the aging head librarian resides. Isolde reveals that her ancestors' experiences with humans as a young girl inspired her to write the Chronicles of Hereso. She explains that as a child, Fedor and Nebsov crash-landed in a village of humans ruled by a golem named Hereso due to a storm. Fedora quickly became accustomed to the village's culture, but her feelings were quickly shattered when the villagers banded together to kill a peaceful neighboring monster. She is forced to reveal her inhuman nature in order to save a villager, and as a result, she is labeled a grotesque, a human term for a monster, and is forced to flee. Isolde brings the story to a close by describing humans who live at the end of the world. She also admits that she knows Somali as a human being, but that she is proud to have met someone who cares about their world before she passes away. Golem and Somali seek shelter from the rain in a large treehouse on their way to their next destination. The house is empty for the season, but it still has cooking supplies, so Somali asks Golem to prepare a meal for her. Golem makes a souffle after sifting through recipes, which Somali finds delicious. Shizuno and Yabashira appear at their door, asking for shelter, before she can finish it or warn Golem about a loose tooth. The two honest join the group the next day and travel to Savage Bygone City in search of a famous dentist. They track down the dentist, a mouse-like man named Soak, who explains the ins and outs of dentistry to Shizuno, but Somali is terrified of her new dental problem. She runs into a gang of thugs, resulting in an alley brawl between them and Golem, who is accompanied by two honest. Salami's tooth comes loose during the scuffle, but when they return to the dentist, he tells her that it was a baby tooth that would be replaced. In need of a place to stay, the group is approached by an innkeeper who offers his room in exchange for the group's help in getting rid of the previous gang, as well as being the town's bodyguard. Shizuno confirms Somali's humanity with Golem while she sleeps in her new bed, and learns that the automaton traded his forest guardianship to protect her instead. Golem tells Shizuno about the time he met Somali in his forest. He came across a toppled cart full of dead humans who had been attacked while on patrol. He was led away from the wreckage by a forest animal to a girl bound in chains beneath a tree, where she abruptly addressed him as Dad. Against his will, the girl started following him at all hours of the day and night, rain or shine. Golem grew attached to her over time and even saved her from drowning when she jumped into a pond to retrieve his recently lost armored shell. Golem decides to leave the forest with the girl in order to find humans, and she is given the name Somali after the animal that first led him to her. In the present, Golem completes his story and reveals to Shizuno his crippled physical body as his death approaches. The group is tasked with bodyguarding the town the next day, so Golem and Yabashira go to work while Shizuno looks after Somali. Somali mulls over a present to give Golem over the next few days while he works, eventually deciding to knit something. Rosa, an innkeeper, arrives one day with food and supplies for the group, as well as assistance with Somali's present. She teaches Somali how to knit a bracelet for Golem, and when she gets the hang of it, she gives her a big hug. Rosa, on the other hand, runs into the trio gang from before and informs them that she has discovered Somali is human. Golem and Yabashira shop for supplies for their trip as they finish up their daily tasks for the last time, while Somali finishes her bracelet. Somali gives Golem her gift that night, and he happily surprises her by giving her a similar bracelet he found in town. They're all playing in the snow when Golem notices a hunting party in the distance looking for humans. Yabashira recognizes Somali's humanity and agrees to divert the party's attention while Golem, Shizuno, and the girl flee to a nearby mine. When they are approached by another hunting party, their path is blocked by a broken bridge, forcing Golem to carry the other two and jump down into the cavern below. They are on their way out when Rosa appears, under the pretense of assisting them, locks them up in a cage. Rosa tells them about how a nearby human settlement persecuted her childhood village, forcing her to seek vengeance on all humans. The hunters approach for the kill, but Golem collapses in a heap and loses an arm as he tries to fight. He has used up all of his life energy. Golem transforms into a monstrous hulking beast as Somali is taken, shocking everyone. The hunting party is targeted by Golem, who attacks them, causing them to flee in terror. Somali blocks Golem's path of destruction as he pursues them, causing him to come to his senses and shut down. He wakes up in a forest meadow a few days later, apologizing to everyone for his actions and explaining that his injuries will not heal as quickly as the others. He and Shizuno go for a walk that night, and he tells the Oni that his physical abilities have been crippled, and his allotted time may be cut short, though the Oni still believes something can be done to help. The group arrives the next day in a town that is hosting an annual festival. Golem sneaks away from the others while they watch a carnival show, feeling that his time has come to leave. Somali realizes this and rushes off to find him, which she does in a nearby forest. As she approaches, Golem tells her that she is better off without him, citing his recent outburst of rage as proof. Somali implores him to stay, and the automaton eventually realizes he has feelings. The father and daughter renew their promise to stay together forever with a renewed promise and bond. Subscribe to get a waifu.